Hey guys, today we're doing a breakdown video of everything we learnt about the Cape York Peninsula and the Tele Track on our trip last year. Filled with heaps of info and hot tips, this is a must watch if you're planning or thinking about heading up there. It's going to be a long one, so chuck the kettle on and let's get into it. And doing this sort of thing could save you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. In this episode, we wanted to do a bit of a breakdown video from what we learnt from our Cape York trip last year, or in the hope to answer some of the questions that we actually had before we left, questions that I'm sure others have as well. First up, I just wanted to say, we're not experts, not at full driving, not at Cape York. We're just a couple of people out here having a crack, winging it just like everyone else. So with that said, everything in this video is from our experience from last year and from the research that we did leading up to our trip. I feel like we learned heaps that we either didn't or couldn't find online, so we thought we'd share all of that. This video will be split into 3 parts. First part will be just about the Cape itself, the Tele Track, we'll do a quick run through of that, and like our experience and with our personal equipment and how that all went. I'll break down the bottom of the video into, like, I'll put some timestamps down there so that, you know, if you're only here for one part, if you're just here for the Tele Track, cool, that'll be down the bottom and you should easily be able to find that. And, you know, hopefully we've saved you a bit of time so you don't have to watch the whole video just to get to the part that you want. But I will say before you disappear, because I've potentially saved you a little bit of time here, if you guys could just give a couple of seconds of that back and hit the like and subscribe button, that would mean the world to us because it's easy to do. And even go as far as dropping a cheeky comment below about what section you're actually here for and what, you know, if you got any insights out of it, that'd be awesome. All right, shall we get into it?
Yep, scroll down.
Oh.
So section 1, all about the Cape. Just a random fact, apparently only 60,000 people reach the tip of the Cape each year, which is pretty mind-blowing. And if this video can help convince or help give some information to one person to make it up there, then it's done its job. When is the best time of year to travel up to the Cape? Well, we think dry season, which is May to October. That's the best time. If you go too early, you might be stuck with some tracks that are too wet that you can't get through, and if you go too late, it might be at the build-up of wet season and flies. Not flies.
Maybe flies.
Maybe flies. And you might get stuck in some hotter weather and risk getting some early rain. School holidays are also quite busy. Every state has different times that they have school holidays, so check that out. If it's the only time that you can travel up there, then we still recommend going. It's an awesome trip.
What are the road conditions like, and do you need a four-wheel drive? It depends on what you're planning on doing. For reference, we went over August. If you're planning on doing like the Tele Track, the Creb Track, Frenchman's, you definitely 100% need a four-wheel drive. If you're just trying to get to the tip, you could do that in a two-wheel drive car. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the gear / our experience section later. It would be possible, but probably wouldn't recommend it. The main highway up there is the PDR, the Peninsula Development Road. The road actually going to the tip does change its name a few times, but if we mention the PDR in this video, we're just talking the road to the tip, unless we say otherwise. The road is a mix of sealed and unsealed roads. Where it's unsealed, the floodways and corrugations can be pretty brutal, so you definitely need to drive to the conditions. For us, driving to the conditions meant airing down to 30 at Laura on our first day of corrugations. After, 2 to 3 hours of driving, we decided that that wasn't enough. So on day 2, we actually aired down to 25 all round on the van and about 22 on the car. And that was a lot better going forward. Keeping in mind that the conditions change every year. The conditions change every year, depending on rainfall, depending on what time of the year you're going, whether it's the start of dry season or the end of dry season, and even to the level of like when it was last graded. You know, if you're driving up the highway behind the grader, you're probably in a good situation. As much as the road conditions aren't favourable at times, don't let that scare you though. It's definitely doable. You just have to drive to the conditions. And we'll probably mention that a few times, but that is very important.
Towing a caravan up the Cape. Can you do it? Yes, we did it. Lots of people did it before us. Lots of people are going to do it after us. Should you do it? At your own risk. As Mitchell said, towing, you got to drive to the conditions. We can't stress this enough. You ideally want a semi or fully off-road caravan. Good tyres with good suspension. Corrugations aren't forgiving, as we've learned. There's a high chance of breaking minor things, but every year the PDR does claim a few vans to major damage. We'll talk about how we specifically prepared for that later on in the video. If you're travelling up there, there's plenty of places like stations that you can actually stop and store your van and then go on without it. If you'd prefer not to take it, then leave it there.
Yeah, and I think with that, even if you're unsure, you can start taking it, and then if you do a day of corrugations and you're like, this isn't for me, those stations that Bridie mentioned, there's just going to be somewhere that you can leave it. So you can kind of play your trip by ear.
Good point.
Thank you. How accessible is fuel? So many fuel stops along the way. Now, while there are a lot, disclaimer, it is remote Australia and sometimes they run out of fuel and you might just have to wait a few days for a delivery. I can only speak about diesel because we had the D-Max. Didn't really take note of like petrol prices or availability. Maybe next time we go up, we might take note for all those Y62 owners out there. As far as diesel goes, definitely plenty of stops there. Do you need a long-range fuel tank? No, I wouldn't say so. Unless you've got a car that you know uses a ridiculous amount of fuel, like you probably already know that and you know your limitations. Even with us, like we took 2 jerry cans as a precaution. We didn't need them because there was that much fuel availability. But like for the D-Max towing a heavy van, I would say that our fuel range isn't that great. I think we were only getting like maybe 400 kilometres out of a tank, which isn't very good, but we still had no issues whatsoever. Price-wise, yes, it's expensive. You know, you've done 500 kilometres of corrugations to get to wherever this remote part of Australia you're in. The fuel's done the same to get there. It's going to be more expensive. Some of the stops are cheaper than others though, so you kind of can plan around that a little bit. We use Petrol Spy to be able to like plan those stops ahead, but I will say, don't skip a servo stop that you need to try and save a few dollars on fuel, because then when you get to the next servo and they're potentially out of fuel, you could get yourself into a bit of a pickle. We've put together a list of fuel stops heading north. Take a screenshot for your travels up there if you need to. But like we said, plenty of fuel, and we use Petrol Spy for prices and locations.
So where can I camp along the way? There's heaps of spots to camp along the way. Free camps, station stays, road houses. We booked nothing in advance except for Weeper Caravan Park because the rodeo was on that weekend, which was pretty fun. So if you're over there for that time, go there. We really wanted to stay at Ponson Bay, but that was fully booked. And we're like a bit nervous, like, where are we going to stay? It's all booked out. But when we got up to the tip, all the other caravan parks were walk-in only, so easy. Camping in national parks, you do need to book that online before you go. We love the Cape though. It's fit our travel style of not worrying about where camping. We just pull up somewhere and camp, and we never really worried about finding a spot. Wiki Camps, that was an absolute lifesaver. We pretty much used that daily. What safety and communication equipment do we need? A UHF radio as an absolute must. Be on channel 40 so you can hear what's happening ahead. There are some call points early on in the track or early on in the Cape where you need to call along to make sure it's safe to go ahead. If you want to talk to your mates on the radio, that's all good and that's cool that you can do that, but have a separate radio on a different channel. First aid kit, that's pretty self-explanatory. A snakebite kit, that's just good to have. They're pretty cheap, so could save your life. Some sort of map. We had a fold-out paper map that was pretty handy and probably is all you need, but we also had the HEMA maps downloaded for GPS locations and for the four-wheel drive tracks. And the biggest thing, Starlink. That's a game changer in the remote locations. Even in unideal settings, like it's still good enough to be able to get enough signal to call for help. You could be able to Google something to fix your own problems. You'll be able to call someone to help them walk you through how to fix your problems. Just enough so you can limp to the next station where you can get help.
Yeah, and with that as well, to use Starlink purely as an emergency device, if you're doing like month-long trips here and there, you can actually pause your subscriptions in between. So if you pay for Starlink for while you're on your trip for a month or two, and then turn it off when you get home, that's a good way as well.
That's handy. Do I need any special permits or anything travelling up the Cape? National parks, usually you have camping fees, and they're to be booked in advance. Above the Jardine, when you cross the ferry, you get an orange permit sticker, which gives you access to all the areas above in the national park up there. Some other remote areas might have specific rules, but we weren't sure about that, so look into that yourself if you're going to those areas.
But I think most things are pretty well signed anyway. Tell you what you need to do. What about the river crossings and water levels on the way up? It all depends on the timing that you go up. For us, in August, the PDR was completely dry. The last leg of the tip, though, surprisingly had some pretty deep water crossings, which I wasn't prepared for some reason. Nothing major, but enough to catch a two-wheel drive car out without any clearance if you've made it this far. The road out to Chili Beach did have some water crossings that we had to do. Again, nothing major, but in wet season or in early dry season, even the PDR where it was completely dry, some of these floodways would likely be a little bit more risky or potentially impassable, and in wet season, definitely impassable.
How do I stay safe from crocodiles? Well, common sense goes a long way. Only swim in the areas that are safe. Stay away from the water's edge, especially if it's murky. Saltwater crocodiles are kings of the water. Every single move that they do is calculated. They know what they're doing. They're not scared of you, so be wary of them. But honestly, you're more likely to hit a wandering cow than have any troubles with crocodiles. Even the safe spots aren't 100% croc-free. Very unlikely, but no guarantees. If there is no salties there, there's probably still freshies. But freshies are friends, right?
Freshies are friends. Let's talk about spare parts, recovery gear, and mechanical prep before your trip. For all of that though, it does depend on your situation, what you plan on doing, and also what type of vehicle you have. First hot tip, Google common issues with your type of vehicle and then carry those spares along with you. Even if you can't install them, just the fact that you have them could actually save you a bit of time waiting around for things to get delivered. And this is especially important if you have a unique or uncommon rig. Tyres, if you're driving to condition, you'd be lucky to damage more than one tyre, but things do happen sometimes. We only took one spare for the van and one spare for the car. But if you've got older tyres or if you're worried about the condition that they're in, then it might pay to take a second spare or even potentially get them replaced before your trip. The tyre pressure monitoring system, 100% recommend that, 100% worth it. And then just some tyre goop and some tyre plugs, same sort of thing, great to have and might get you out of trouble. Before you go, get a good service done on your car. When you book it in, tell your mechanic what you're intending on doing, and then they can have a thorough check over your car for any issues that might pop up. And also be a member of RAA or whatever it is in your state, just your national roadside assist thing, and potentially even check the level of that too, because they all have different features and stuff. Tools, basic tools that you know how to use, that you know for things that you will know how to fix. What is also important is a jack that works with your setup. A lot of the factory jacks that come with your cars don't actually work if your car's got a lift in it. So it pays to just test your equipment out beforehand to make sure that it'll actually do what it intends to do. Sort of different, but example of that is our van came with a high lift jack, which is designed for it and it would lift it up, but it actually came with some tabs that are supposed to be welded onto the caravan. So we might have had some trouble trying to change a tyre if we needed to.
It would have been nice to know.
That would have been nice to know. So test your equipment out before and make sure it works with your setup. Recovery gear, if you're doing any of the tracks, definitely need recovery gear, max tracks or something similar, and a basic recovery kit, which generally comes with all the straps and shackles that you need. Make sure that the shackles actually fit your setup as well. And just have a little bit of a look into the recovery points on your vehicle. A lot of the ones that come from factory aren't rated, so you might actually have to get some installed there. With having the recovery gear, ideally know how to use it. You know, if you're green, maybe do a four-wheel drive course, there's plenty of them around. But at the minimum, don't be the guy with no gear and no idea. At least be the guy with all the gear and no idea, because at least it shows you've made some effort, and then people will be more willing to help you get out of trouble using your own recovery gear instead of risking damaging their own gear if you've got yourself into a bit of a pickle. If you have got yourself in this situation, don't forget about the thank you beers. They go a long way.
Are there any alcohol restrictions? Yes, there is. Some areas do have restrictions, so you need to know. We'll chuck a link below to the official website so that you can find out those facts. Some areas were a little bit confusing. Don't rely on word of mouth. You might get caught out. We didn't do our homework and stocked up on way too much and really panicked. We're like, what do we do? We have too much. But then by the end of the Tele Track, we were pretty much out of alcohol anyway, so it wasn't a problem. The most common areas with restrictions is above the Jardine. You can buy alcohol up there. It is super expensive though, like it was $90 for a carton of middies, so just keep that in mind. Make sure you stick to the limits and you'll be sweet. The Jardine Ferry River Crossing, there's no need to book that. You can just rock up and you'll be able to go. There is a time of day that it shuts, so make sure you're there before 5, I think. We only just scraped in. We'll overlay a cost of what it is because it depends on your setup, like if you're towing, not towing, etc. Now the ferry does break down. The 2025 season seemed like it was broken down every second week with lineups of cars for kilometres waiting to go across. Just keep in mind that is an issue. If you're on a time schedule and you need to get home, you might get stuck on the tip side and you'll have to call your boss and be like, oh, I can't make it in next week to work. And it just might happen and dratch, you're stuck in paradise.
Couple of things that just putting this video together that we kind of realised that we overlooked. Getting to the tip. From the Jardine River Ferry, the main road there takes you through Bamaga, basically all the way to the tip. The road is a mixture of bitumen, corrugations, dirt roads, and a few more river crossings. And along the way, don't forget to stop in at the croc tent. Then you eventually get to the car park. From there, it's either a 10 to 15 minute rocky walk up and over the hill to get to the tip, or at low tide, you can actually walk along the beach and make it all the way to the sign. The iconic sign marks the northernmost point of Australia. Bring a beer, bring a mascot, you know, you've got to get the "we made it" photo out the front of the tip. It's a pretty surreal moment, and it's your reward for all the corrugations you've tackled, all the creek crossings, you know, the dust that you've gotten everywhere that you're going to have to clean when you get home. Interesting note, at like a proper high tide, the bottom of the sign actually goes underwater. That's something that, yeah, I didn't actually know, so don't go there then, because you might have to swim with the crocs to get to the sign. And if that's not enough for you, there's other ways that you can do it and see the tip. There's helicopter flights, jet ski tours that you can do where you actually jet ski all the way to the tip. We did that and that was really awesome. I'll throw a link down below about that. But yeah, you know, awesome experience, and, you know, well worth doing, well worth all the corrugations.
Can you buy food anywhere? Well, below the Jardine, Weipa has a few shops. It has a whole shopping centre. There's a Woolies there. Above the Jardine, Bamaga has a decent sized shop. Food is more expensive, obviously. It's a remote area, like fuel. It's also had to travel those distances. Although we think the prices of like essentials wasn't that crazy, to be honest. But the snacks, they were expensive. Like it was like $9 for a packet of chips. Crazy. Roadhouses had very limited stuff, but you could still get some stuff. Gunshot has a reasonable selection and was a great last minute saviour. Best bet, shop at those big shops, stock up, fill your fridge, fill your freezer, fill your cupboards before you go. How many days do you need on the Cape? We did it in 3 weeks. Didn't see everything, but we felt like it was a pretty good time. You could do it in less if it's the only time available that you had, and if you weren't doing all the side missions to like Weipa and Chili Beach. But yeah, we thought 3 weeks seemed like the pretty sweet spot. Can you have campfires? Generally, yes you can, unless it's a total fire ban. Common sense. We'll link to official fire ban checker below as well. In the national parks, you can only use the designated fire pits available. You can't collect wood in the national parks themselves, so stock up and bring that with you. Water availability. There's plenty of places to fill up along the way. It's not a huge worry, but plan ahead. Bring as much as you can to start with and then top up as you go. Rule of thumb is 5 litres per person per day. Just keep that in mind and know your own needs and plan around that.
Section 1 done. Alright, Section 2, the Tele Track. As per usual, we're having all sorts of fun here. The GoPro's been on ice, now it's getting charged. It's probably a different angle. Battery in the camera is almost gone flat. My coffee is empty. It's almost empty, sorry. And then you've probably noticed we've got a screen with some notes on there because there's a lot of information here and we're not that good at remembering things. So yeah, you'll probably see us glancing off that every now and then. Anyway, let's jump into the Tele Track. The Old Telegraph Track, also known as the Tele Track, is arguably Australia's most iconic four-wheel drive track. Approximately 130 kilometres long and originally built in the late 1800s for the overland telegraph line that was decommissioned in 1987. Today, it's an off-road track that runs parallel to the Peninsula Development Road and is a bucket list drive for many four-wheel drivers.
First question, did we take a caravan? Absolutely not. Impossible to take a caravan. We left it at Bramwell Station Tourist Park. It was free to leave there for the whole time as long as you stayed 2 nights. So we obviously stayed the night before we left and the night when we got back. There's heaps of places along the way with similar deals. We don't know specifically, so you have to find that out yourself. Not sure on those costs. If you're doing day trips, there's plenty of places and gravel pits that you can leave your van for the day at your own risk. How many days do you need to do the Tele Track? That is a big question. We did it in 4 to 5 days and thought that was pretty good. You could spend a lot more time at these camp spots. They're pretty amazing. You could do a speed run over one day, but you'd want no issues and you'd want to be prepared. It'd be a huge day. Good middle ground, do the southern half in one day, do the northern half the next day.
Can you take a trailer on the Old Telegraph Track? Yes, you can. We saw camper trailers, we saw tinnies, but my question to that would be, why? That's not saying don't do it. If your answer to the question why makes perfect sense, then absolutely go for it. But just keep in mind, it does make everything harder. and you're going to be more likely to break something. You know, there's an extra 100 kilos on your shocks at the back, and you're towing like 1 ton of dead weight through the Old Telegraph Track. So just be realistic on what your car and trailer can handle, and ideally the smaller the trailer the better in this scenario, and definitely no wider than your car. All right, let's run through the Tele Track from south to north. In this, we'll mostly be talking about the bigger obstacles. Between those bigger obstacles, there's lots of sandy stretches, corrugations, undulations, little washouts, but nothing too serious, but just worth noting that there is a little bit of four-wheel driving between these major things. Also worth reiterating that this was from our experience in 2024. Every year the season changes due to rainfall or, you know, how many people have taken certain lines and stuff like that. So be aware of that. A quick tip or point before we start: you're at the start of the most iconic track in Australia. When you come to some of these bigger obstacles that we're going to talk about in this section, take 2 minutes. Get out of your car, get prepared, assess the obstacle. What's your plan if you get stuck? Pull out the recovery gear before you need to, you know, pull out your winch line, set up your snatch strap, whatever it is, get it ready now. Don't wait until things go pear-shaped. Again, we're not experts on this stuff, but we did see some really dumb stuff on the Tele Track. You know, everyone's got different experience levels, and that's okay, but just be prepared and you'll likely save yourself some dollars. All of the dumb things that we saw could have been saved just from that little bit of preparation. With that said though, let's jump into it. Palm Creek. About 15 minutes into the track, you're faced with a gnarly as drop-in, which rivals Gunshot. And if you pull up to it and your first thought is, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Same. It's a massive icebreaker, and you don't need to go down that. From where you are, go right, and there's a few easier drop-ins with some nice easy crawl downs. The creek crossing itself was deep right after the drop-in from where everyone's been planting it once they get in. From there, you turn left through the water and drive up the river. Turn your lockers off in this situation to help with turning. Once you're out of that section, the exit was a bit muddy, but we crawled up it, no dramas whatsoever.
I'm gonna go grab a hat. Check.
Next up, Cockatoo Creek. We didn't get a lot of footage of the creek here itself, as the water level wasn't too high. It was a casual drop-in to get down to the creek. The track didn't line up well for the best angle to drop in. We actually saw someone almost roll their car here, and then someone tried to catch the car that was about to roll. Don't do that. Goes back to take your time, get prepared, line up. It's okay to reverse and reset your line if you need to. South Alice Creek, for us it was completely dry, just a couple of washouts that you had to drive through. After South Alice, then you have to cross North Alice. That had a bit of a gnarly drop in if you've got a bad rear approach angle. The back end of your car might kiss the ground as you drop in, as ours did. The creek itself though wasn't too bad at all, easy crossing. Dowhunty River, honestly I don't even remember it. I think it was bone dry when we went in, or maybe it was just a bit of a puddle. It wasn't really notable when we went in August. Next up, Birdie Creek was a pretty straightforward crossing. You just drive along the bank until you line up with the exit. This avoids all the deep potholes that are along the riverbed. If you're unsure, either walk it yourself or have a spotter. Still relatively easy crossing.
Dun dun dun!
Gunshot. Before you get to Gunshot though, in between Birdie Creek and Gunshot, there is a bypass back to the highway, so you can avoid Gunshot if you want to. This is 8 kilometers before Gunshot. You can drive down there to check it out if you want first, and then backtrack. It's not that far, but I will just say we had friends that did this, and they said that the road back to the highway was that bad that they should have just done Gunshot instead. So do with that information what you will. In Gunshot though, there are 5 to 6 different drop-ins. We watched people for a few hours before we decided. We ended up doing the main one. We decided that that one was probably our best bet, and surprisingly wasn't too bad.
Still scary.
Still scary. Usually though, the far right one is the most safest run, but it does depend on each season and rains and how many cars have gone through it. We avoided that one because we met someone back at Chili Beach who had gone down that one and actually caved in their door. After Gunshot, next up, Cockatoo Creek. This one was a bit deeper and was flowing, but again, just walk it and pick your line. There are some drop-offs throughout the creek that are worth avoiding, but you can basically just drive straight across. The crossing was no dramas for us, but the exit did give us a bit of grief. There are 2 lines that you can pick. There's the left line, which is like a long, sandy ramp, which was super boggy, and most cars that were going up there had to get winched up. The right-hand side was the one that we took, and same sort of thing. The first section was sandy and boggy, but after that it was fine. But about 10 meters in that one, there's a bit of a lip up and a step up that basically stopped us in our tracks, and we ended up having to get snatched up and then drove the rest of the way. I think like we would have made it ourselves though had we used the max tracks and I hadn't turned the traction control off properly in that scenario.
Whoopsie.
Whoops. Once you're up there, it's only a short drive with nothing too serious back to the main highway. Congratulations, you've just completed the southern half of the Tele Track. Let's jump straight into the northern section. First up, nice easy obstacle, Fruitbat Falls. This is an epic swimming hole, one of the best ones along the track. After you've had a dip there and you want to move on, a little bit down the road there is the Scrubby Creek crossing. This is between Fruitbat and Eliot Falls. I don't think it gets mentioned much, but this is another one that you pull up to and it just looks ridiculous. And you think again, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But again, head to the right and there's a concrete causeway that you can just cross, and that was nice and easy. Barely get your feet wet. After that, another awesome couple of swimming holes, Eliot Falls and Twin Falls. Absolutely amazing. Can't go wrong with these ones. Definitely stop in and check them out. Twin Falls was Bridie's favourite of the three. From there, Canal Creek is next. It was straightforward for us. We didn't film anything. I think it was pretty dry by the time that we went through it. And then from there, Sam's Creek. This is a stunning camp spot. Also the home of the Secret Falls. Definitely worth the stop. Even if you're driving through that day, stop in for a swim. After you swim, when crossing the creek there's a couple of drop-ins. One is deeper than the other, and both drop-ins aren't good if you don't have good rear clearance. On the other side, the exit's a bit rough and a bit undulated with some deep ruts to get out, but still nothing too serious. Moving on, Mistake Creek. The creek itself was easy enough this year for us, but then on the other side of it, the exit had some pretty gnarly undulations. I actually had to have a couple of cracks at this because I took a bad line, but yeah, still just go slow and cruise up it. Before we go any further here, I just wanted to jump back in between Sam's Creek and Mistake Creek. There is a bypass exit which takes you back to the main highway. This is your last chance to get off of the track if you don't want to do Nolans Brook. I bring this up now because once you go down into Cannibal Creek and do that crossing, it would be very hard to backtrack and avoid Nolans Brook. You're pretty much at the point where you're now committing to doing Nolans. Cannibal Creek had two options. We took the far right, which was an easier drop in but much deeper water. The left hand line, people were using like 6 max tracks just to be able to level out the drop in to get down safely without causing too much grief. We didn't really like the look of that, so that's why we chose the right hand line. The crossing itself was fine. It was a bit of a hairpin exit and it was quite sandy and boggy on the right hand side if you got really close to the edge of it, which is bad news if you're a very heavy troop carrier and get too close to that right hand side. Cypress Creek Bridge, which is a sketchy as log bridge strapped together with ratchet straps and pretty much has to get rebuilt at least once a season. I was super nervous about this one for some reason. Like, out of all of the things, this was one that just had me really nervous. It was sketchy, but you just crossed over it and it was fine. Next up, another one that I don't think gets mentioned a lot. I think it's either Logan's Creek or Logan's Ford. There's two options here. There's a left, which is a longer, deeper water crossing, or the right hand side, which has a bigger drop, which still wasn't too bad, and then shallow water the rest of the way. We did the right one and it was pretty tame. One more smaller water hole, nothing major, but you know, I'd imagine a bit closer to the wet season it would be a bit deeper and probably a bit more to be concerned with. Bridie did this one. And then Nolans Brook. When we actually got there, we were surprised that we'd come to Nolans Brook. We thought it looked relatively tame, but I think that's because the tracks actually hadn't been chewed up yet. We were there pretty early in the day. We got there, we walked it, picked a line and went straight through. No dramas for any of the cars that we were with. Again, there's multiple lines that you can choose. Walk them, prepare yourself and pick your line. And I emphasize the prepare part because
Story time.
We had already passed, so we were on the other side. We saw one guy rock up and a few of us went over and had a bit of a chat with him, told him all the ins and outs, you know, this one's been fine, this one's got a few people stuck, no one's done that one, you know, just told him all about what's going on. Dude completely ignored all the advice that the guys had given and went and picked his own mystery line, went down it, got bogged instantly and started filling up with water. He had no recovery gear attached, no one waiting on the other side to pull him out, and to top it all off, his car had been going in and out of limp mode all day. So someone had to quickly run up, go grab their car, while someone else was diving under his car to try and attach a snatch strap to the front of it, while he sat in his car filling up with water. Moral of the story, ask for help, be prepared, don't be that guy. So many things could have been done differently to prevent this. Not trying to ridicule anyone here for making a mistake or a series of mistakes, but really just trying to drive home the importance of stopping, having a think, and preparing for if things go pear-shaped, because they can, and when they do, it usually happens pretty fast, and doing this sort of thing could save you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Don't know what the extent of the damage was in this case, but I do know that for hours his car wouldn't start because it got that much water in it. Anyway, after Nolans, you're basically done. You can go all the way to the north to go see the old Jardine River crossing, or turn off back to the highway, which is about a 30 to 40 minute drive from Nolans Brook camp. Few ruts and washouts, but by now nothing that you haven't already done. And again, congratulations, you've just completed the Old Telegraph Track. Absolutely.
So where did we camp on the Tele Track? There's lots of places along the way. We stayed at Cockatoo Creek for Mitchell's birthday. That was our first night. Second night was at Cockatoo Creek after we got winched off. Thought, we'll just camp here the night. Next was Sam's Creek. That was the place with the secret waterfall. Absolutely awesome. Definitely stop there, like Mitchell said. So Nolans Brook, that was our last camp spot. Awesome spot to camp. Make sure you do that. You can sit and watch other people pass as you've done. Sit down, have a drink, have a swim. You've earned it. There's so many options to camp along the way. We used HEMA maps and wiki camps. Super helpful. We had no issue finding a spot at all along the Tele Track.
Random question that I love. Someone did ask us this, and it was a question that I had as well. Can you bring a caravan into Nolans from the northern end? We actually looked at doing this ourselves, and I think you could get about 95% of the way in, but the actual last little bit to get into Nolans Brook has some very tight turns and some very low hanging and tight, I guess, trees and in areas, and I just don't think that you would actually get into the camp itself. And also, once you've got that far down there, then there's also nowhere to turn around to go back. I just drove in. It was about a 30-minute drive in to just scope it out and drive out, which you could do yourself and assess for yourself. But yeah, I don't think you could. But a smaller hybrid van, absolutely no worries. But big full-size vans, probably a bit too much for that area.
And that's the Tele Track. And before we jump into section 3, we might have to move because I'm getting in the sun.
All right, we're now back in the shade again, all set up, ready to rock. New memory card, it's all happening here. Let's jump into section 3, which is our overall personal experience of the Cape and the equipment that we used.
Just firstly, what part made us the most nervous? For me personally, it was swagging it in croc country. I was absolutely terrified. I'm like, what if I need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and there's crocodiles there? But turns out there's heaps of room and plenty of spaces, so it wasn't even a worry.
It comes back to that common sense you mentioned earlier. For me, it was doing something silly and breaking the car and then not being able to get home. This was also totally fine. Your trip can basically be as tame or as serious as you make it. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, for sure. So what were the road conditions that we experienced? As mentioned, we went in August. It was pretty dry, and all things considered, it was quite tame. There were some nasty sections which were quite corrugated and other sections that were okay. Our biggest issue was having to slow down in the ruts and the floodways because we're towing a heavy vehicle, so we don't want to cause any damage. So yeah, watching out for them. If there was a dip sign, you knew it was going to be bad. So definitely slow down for them. Other stretches, we found that there was a shoulder on the side of the road. It was actually a lot smoother than the main road, but be prepared, they do just end, so you've got to get back on the main road. So our gear, what did we have? We had a 2018 Isuzu D-Max towing an 18.5 foot on the Move Tracks caravan. If you want to see more about our caravan, we did a walkthrough a while ago, so we'll put the link in somewhere. To be fair, I think both handled pretty well with only minor issues. We're going to do a damage report at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that.
What car modifications did we do and what would we recommend? So the D-Max had a 2-inch lift in it, which was good for clearance and gave us better approach and departure angles. We had a snorkel, which with that, make sure that your airbox and snorkel, the whole thing's sealed. We found out that ours wasn't after doing a few water crossings. Didn't have any dramas with it, and we did find that before Nolans and sealed it up, so we got through unscathed there. UHF radio, very important, we've covered that already. Extended diff breathers. Before the trip we had an additional fuel filter and a catch can installed. The fuel filter is good for when you're filling up in some of these remote fuel areas. Sometimes there are chances that the fuel isn't as good as what it is in the city, and the catch can's just good for longevity of your vehicle's life. The D-Max had all-terrain tyres. I think they were Kumo road adventure something tyres anyway. I might put some information down. They did the job just fine. You don't need anything extreme. We also have the iCheck tyre pressure monitoring system. We reckon that this is a must-have and can definitely save you. It definitely would have saved us when we destroyed a couple of tyres on the Tele Track a few years ago. Whoops. We also carried pretty well all the recovery gear that we mentioned earlier. We had some rated recovery points installed on the D-Max. And as I mentioned, because most factory ones, it's not rated for that high impact of a recovery scenario. And we also had a rear diff locker in the D-Max. I would basically recommend all of the above as the minimum benchmark that you should go up there with if you're going to be doing the tracks. You could get away with the diff locker and maybe get the max tracks out a few more times, but the diff locker definitely helped us get through a few sketchy patches. But the snorkel and the diff breathers are very important for those sorts of environments. And if you're going solo, I would recommend that you at least get a winch as well so you can self-recover. That's for if you're planning on doing any or all of the tracks. If you are just going to the tip though, and that's all you're planning on doing, a stock vehicle could make it, but some upgraded suspension would go a long way, not necessarily for the clearance, but just to be able to handle the constant corrugations.
So preparing for corrugations, highly recommend. Rule of thumb, if it can move, it will, so do something about it beforehand. It's probably easier if we go in and show you what we did. So yeah, let's jump into that. Insight. So how do we prep our van? I thought I'd put my Cape York shirt on so it's relevant. First, Sirocco fans, we push these back, make sure they're clipped in at the bottom so they're not going to move around. Our TV, we always take this off, it unhooks at the back and we just put that on the bed for travel. Over here, so we have a splashback here that is stored in there. But usually that sits on there and we take that off, it's just got two little screws. This comes off, that sits on top of the bed. We take these trays out, they also sit on the bed, they don't really move around, same with the oven tray. And we even put our little tea towels in there just to stop the shaking around of the oven doors. Hot tip I discovered, these things must stay up, otherwise there's like a safety switch that turns the gas off if they're down. Our bathroom door, we took that off completely, so we just have a curtain now, so we just put the hair tie around there to hold it open so it doesn't slide around as we're driving. So the bathroom, we need to make sure the shower is locked so that the door can't swing open. And then in the shower, we take the shower head off, we wrap it up in a towel and just leave it on the ground so that there's no way that it can fall and like rattle around on the floor in the shower, breaking anything. So yeah, they're the ways that we prepare the caravan inside for corrugations. Anything else you can think of, let us know. There is one last thing I will say, check even when you're traveling, is make sure these are clipped in. Sometimes when you I go around and push them to make sure they're all clipped in. Sometimes like that, it's not clipped in properly, so you just make sure that's secure so it's not going to come open and your caravan's full of your stuff.
Because we have had that.
Yeah, once. Luckily it was only a low cupboard though. That's how you prep inside the caravan.
Alright, damage report for us. For the caravan, we had some loose screws that just kept appearing throughout the van. The chassis was peppered with paint chips. We now have a stone stomper that probably would have saved most of those chips. Our oven door handle came loose. We had to put that back together after day one, I think it was. The fridge door panel failed, but I just had to silicone it back in and hold it in place while it dried. We don't know for sure, corrugations are bad, but we had a lot of magnets on that panel, and the panel itself is quite heavy, so we're just thinking the extra weight potentially played a bit of a part in that. Dust inside the caravan, it was minimal. We do have dust suppression, but a little bit did get in, especially in some of those under cupboard spaces that aren't sealed as good. We broke a Sirocco fan, and throughout the trip our sink plug fell apart as well. For some reason it comes in different parts, and that was more inconvenient than anything because then you couldn't fill up the sink, and in remote Australia it was hard to find a plug that actually fit a sink.
Yeah, it just unwinded over the corrugations and the bottom pin went down the end and then you couldn't plug it in properly.
Yep. But I mean, with that, keep it simple. Why do you have a sink plug that has multiple parts to it? It's just a plug. Yeah. Done. Which is what we have now. And for the car, the alternator played up on us after a couple of days. We pulled it apart, cleaned it up, and it was as good as new after that. I don't believe that this was all due to the Tele Track, because when we were pulling it apart and cleaning it, there was definitely stuff in there that was from previous adventures somewhere along the lines. Rub rails and rear bars copped some hits, so there was a few dings and scratches, and this is also how we lost our number plate. If you see that, I'd love a photo of it. It's probably on the tree somewhere. Our bull bar shifted slightly, and we had to just adjust that when we got home. Our electronic mirrors were in, but then they got pushed in further, and then this caused the electronics to stop working, but a little bit of contact cleaner and they were as good as new. And then also from that, there was a couple of dents in the door panels from where they were pushed into the door. Also, weirdly, somehow the passenger side window button fell in, got pushed in, but that, take the door panel off and that was an easy pop back in. We had the issue with our car randomly not starting throughout the whole trip, not just the Cape. This was related to the fuel filter and catch can that we got installed before the trip. Turned out to be just like a loose clamp somewhere. When we took it back to the mechanics after the trip, they sorted it out straight away, no worries. It was more inconvenient than anything, and when it first started happening, it was quite scary because we're like, oh my god, we haven't even got to the hard bits and our car's not starting. But yeah, it was fine. And then the only bit of major damage that we did, and even then, I almost say major reluctantly, still not even that bad considering, but the front axle actuator, I think I said that right, for four-wheel drive, got some water in it and carked it. This was giving us an intermittent four-wheel drive warning light popping up, and from then onwards we just didn't need to use four-wheel drive anymore because we didn't know what the problem was and we didn't want to cause any more damage. By the end of the trip, that light was pretty well on permanently, but yeah, took it to the mechanics, got it sorted out, $700, and she's as good as new. All things considered, I don't think that's too bad at all.
Yeah. Alright, we got some hot tips and some final thoughts for you guys as well. First of all, take crap clothes that you don't care about. They're going to get destroyed. They're going to get covered in red dirt. We still have stuff that is stained red. At a point, we had some fizzy drinks for our alcohol, and we ran out, and we're like, oh no, what do we do? So we thought, how good would a soda stream be? So if you're worried about running out of fizzy drink, soda stream. Genius idea.
We still haven't got one.
I know we still haven't got one, but it's
on the cards.
Also joining Facebook groups. The group to the Cape and Back was amazing for some helpful information. You can check the current track conditions, which was awesome. Any issues that were going on up there, you'd know. As mentioned before, Starlink, super handy, self-explanatory. Another thing, there was also a lot of people up there that are happy to give advice, but don't always take this advice as the be-all and end-all. Use that information to make your own educated guesses, or educated guesses. As mentioned earlier about the guy that caved in his door doing the right track at Gunshot, he actually got information from someone saying, oh yeah, that track's fine, I just did it. And then he went through, caved his door, and he's like, what the hell, man? You just said you did it. And he's like, yeah, on a motorbike. So silly. So the whole Cape itself, if you're sticking to the main roads, can you do it yourself? Absolutely. It's pretty easy. You're going to have heaps of people coming through if anything goes wrong anyway. For the Tele Track, can you do it yourself? Sure. This is where having a winch comes in handy, and you're probably going to meet people along the way anyway that'll help out. In saying that, not everyone's up for a chat. We found that the people in smaller groups were happy to have a chat and even tag along. We ended up with a convoy of 15 people at the end. But some people in the bigger groups that are more tight-knit together, they don't want to have a bar of anything, to the point where a couple of us went and said hello to some of them, and they pretty much turned around and walked away. Good job, buddy. Nice and friendly. Would we do it again? Absolutely. Definitely. It was so fun. We'd probably do it in a bit of a different setup though. Instead of taking a caravan, we'd probably have a rooftop tent. Seems a bit easier, and we don't have to drive back and forth getting the caravan. We'd probably take an older car that has more of a capable four-wheel drive, so that we can do those tracks that are a bit harder and a bit more risky, like Justin did in his patrol. That thing did amazing. In saying that, that's how we would do it, but if you've got a brand new car and stuff, still go. It's an awesome trip.
That's just the way that we would do it again, because we've already done it, so we could probably see it a bit differently than how we saw it this time. That pretty well wraps up our Cape York breakdown video. I think we're going to put together some sort of Cape York itinerary of what we think makes a good trip. Maybe one for just the Tele Track as well. And I was even thinking of putting one together for people that don't actually have a caravan and don't really want to swag it, because I think you could still do the trip if you do like your luxury. There are options. If you're keen on any of that, let us know and we'll try and get that out as soon as possible. And if you're still here watching the video, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of it. If you've got any insights or value out of this video, don't forget to hit the like button or the subscribe button. It's easy to do, it's free to do, and it helps us out so much. If there's any questions or things that you think we might have missed, flick us a message, drop a comment below, and we're, you know, more than happy to have a chat about this stuff. You know, that's why we're out here doing it. But yeah, you know, thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.
Bye.